Hi, everybody.
How's it going?
Welcome to the exciting episode 15.
Number 15, yeah.
TV.
It's a little ceremony. In Ninja Chop.
We've got a set of really great questions and we're going to get going. Just a quick reminder, all these questions come from our end users, which is all of you. So please click on the link that takes you to the moderator page where you can submit your own questions that we look forward to answering in the next episode.
Great.
So here we go.
So the first question is for you, Avinash, from Shalindra in Hyderabad. Can I see the second, third, and last landing pages visited for a specific keyword? For example, with keyword XYZ landing page 1, page 2, page 3, and page 9 has visited. How can I generate this report in Google Analytics? Currently, only the first and last page report is available. So I think what Shalindra is asking for is to see the top landing page report by keyword.
Exactly. And it's very simple, easy thing to do. Just create an advanced segment for any particular keyword, say Avinash, and then go to your top landing pages report, which is in the content section of Google Analytics. Change the segment from all visits to that particular keyword, and what you will see in front of you are the listing of the landing pages ranked by popularity of people who came on that particular keyword. Boom, you're done.
Easy.
That was easy.
All right.
All right, Nick, another question easy for you. Oh, all the way from Dubai in United Arab Emirates from Mohit Jain. And he's asking, is there a way to know in Google Analytics the average time visitors are taking to reach a goal page?
Oh, that's a good question. So currently there's not a way to do that. We have time till a visitor actually completes a transaction. We have average time on page, average time on site, but not the length of time to reach a page, not the length of time before a person actually converts.
Right, so time to a page is not a standard metric in Google Analytics, but to all the beautiful developers out there who want to pick up this challenge, through our API, of course, you know the timestamp, you know the page, you know the order in which they're viewed. So if your developer wants to step up to a challenge and create this using our free, exciting open API, then of course, go for it.
Great.
Another one for you, Nick, all the way from Calgary, from Heather Scat. And Heather Scat asks, what's the recommended way to do internal campaign tracking, i.e. impressions and clicks via banners on our own site? So this is particularly in cross-sells and upsells. I'm viewing I'm on the home page and maybe you're upselling me to another product, or I'm on a one product page, you're selling a bundle of that product with another one. So it's all the essentially campaigns that are happening once you arrive into one particular website. So what do we do, Nick?
In this case, I would use event tracking. So you don't use campaign tracking because that's all about the context with which people came to your site. So it's all about referrals and campaigns and AdWords and so forth. Events talk about how people interact with content in your site, interact with the banners on your site. So if you set up an event to fire every time the page is there, then you can look at the views, the impressions, and every time somebody clicks on the banner, you can track the clicks, and you can do your own division to get the click-through rates.
Exactly. And we had the same question from Andre in Sydney. So Australia, Canada, we're worried about the same thing. The next question is for Nick as well. And Nick, this one comes from you in Singapore. I apologize for butchering that name. I apologize. Very interesting question, like this one. And it says, my shopping cart is for two user types. Number one goes to the normal steps to a goal. User number two branches off between pages 2 and 3 to another page, then to the same goal. How do I create a funnel showing conversion per user type without changing the page tags? And so in this case, a simple scenario, if I could reframe the question, is some people will go through the checkout using an existing account page, and boom, they just go through. Some people might be new visitors to the site, and they'll have to create an account before they check out. So they end up in the same place, but they go through different paths. So is there a way to do this, Nick?
Yeah, well, without tagging your site, there is a way to do it, but you have to actually use our API. So the point is that we do have a funnel visualization report where you actually have to configure how many steps people go through, and you can set up a different funnels using the funnel visualization tool.
Right.
And then there's other third parties. PattyTrack is a company, we'll link to it, who actually created a tool which allows you to apply segments to funnels of the reports. So that way you can use your existing funnel report and apply a segment, whether a person interacted or not, and then analyze the two segments next to each other.
But Nick, one of the first things that they will have to do is they will have to figure out how to capture the event that I went down the new visitor path, new account path. and you had an existing account, so that we would also have to capture first using an event of some sort.
You could either do it as an event, or if you know there's a particular page within only one funnel but not the next, you can apply a segment, that'll apply to the session, and then you can get the reporting by those sessions.
There you go. So Patty Track is a tool, and we're going to link to it in our show notes. Go there, and it's great. And also it actually records pan session funnels, which is a very unique feature of the tool. It's very exciting. So if you completed the path across 2 or 3 sessions, it'll actually also show you that. Very, very cool.
Cool. So next question here is for you, Avinash, and this is from Mario in Hamburg, Germany. With custom reports, I can see unique page views. Is there a difference between URL and page title? So for example, if article1.htm and article2.htm both have the same page title as article, are they counted as the same or 2 different pages for unique page views?
So the page title report is aggregating all the URLs. It actually, Google Analytics captures the URLs as well as the title that you have on the page. So if your entire website is one title, I have seen those.
Yeah.
The whole website is one page title. In which case, when you go to the report in the content section by page title, you will actually see the entire data, all the data for the entire website aggregated into one row, because the entire site is one page title. If you click on it and drill down, you'll be able to see the data that is segmented out. So remember, the data is collected by URL, then aggregated in the page title report. If you think that article1.htm and article2.htm is happening on your site, make sure you click through on the title to see the URLs where you can see the breakout and then make decisions.
Yeah,
based on the data.
and one last important point is for the unique page views metric. Google Analytics takes into account both the title as well as the URL to determine the uniqueness.
There you go.
Great. So here's another question for you, Avinash. This is from Juan in Buenos Aires. Why does Google.com, images.google.com, etc. show up as referrals in the traffic sources report? I do get a Google organic source, but the rest of Google's traffic appears as referral instead of search. Have I done something wrong?
Oh, actually, you've not, Juan. Your analytics tool is working fine, and you'll notice this behavior perhaps through other web analytics tools like Omniture and WebTrends, etc., etc. And what's happening is there are 2 scenarios. One is that I go to google.com and I search for Web Analytics TV, the awesomest TV show in the world, right? There's a big query for you. And you search, and that's you using Google Search. That behavior will be collected and recorded by Google Analytics in your search report. But then Google also has a number of other properties. For example, one of Google's properties is google.com/products. And in that case, the visit that will come to your website from google.com/products will actually go into the referring URL report. Or as an example, the Google Analytics help section, the Google Analytics help section is google.com/analytics/help or something or the other. And a number of people have posted their links to my blog in the Google Analytics help section. And when I see those visits coming to my blog, it doesn't show up under search. It actually shows up as referrer google.com. I can drill down and I can actually then see it /analytics, etc. So in your referrer report, you're seeing properties owned by Google that are not the search engine. And in the search report, you're seeing google.com, the search engine. So your reports are working perfectly fine. And if you want to combine these for any reason, by the way, use advanced segmentation.
Absolutely.
It's an or advanced statement, and you can actually lump all Google traffic together if you would like to do that.
Good point there. So another question for you. This is from James G in London. Hi, James. Hey guys, I love to tag my links from social media. I do it all the time. I would like to have tagged links into the info of the section of the Facebook page without using a URL shortener or redirecting the user. They don't allow HTML, so what can I do?
This is a great question, James, and I'm afraid that there are some complicated jumping, dancing things that we can do with GFF-Flash, FPML tags, etc., But if you're unable to post a shortened URL link, I'm afraid that is the easiest way to do it, and I really wouldn't send you down other path. So if you're unable to even post a shortened URL, a bit.ly URL, or in my case, I have my own domain name for a short URL called zqi.me, and I just post that on my Facebook page, then I'm afraid that it would be exceedingly painful to track other things. So I would recommend you go down that path. It's not a great option, but that's what we got. Nick, here's a question from episode 14 from Seth in Lincoln, Nebraska. Follow-up question.
Follow-up, okay.
Seth, you're a loyal visitor. And Seth says, in episode 14, Nick mentioned using query parameters in links that make them distinct for in-page analytics reporting. I remember this one.
Yeah, this was a good question before, yeah.
It was then mentioned to filter out at profile level. If these are filtered out, will they still affect the in-page analytics reports? Nick.
Right, so filtering is incorrect.
People are holding you accountable.
Right, let me tell you how it, this is what you need to do to make it work properly. So there's two pages. There's a page people are on and the page people go to. And that's how these in-page analytics reports are being generated when we look at how people navigate from the pages. So the original question was, if there's two links on one page that point to the same destination page, how can you differentiate between the two links? And so the solution, what you can do is you can use, you can add query parameters on both of the different initial pages, and on the second page, on the page you go to, use the canonical URL that you tag on your site and actually override the default tracking parameter. So by default, it'll be like / page A, question mark XYZ, and the canonical URL is just / page A. So what you want to do is override the default tracking with this canonical URL.
That makes sense. I agree.
So there's no filtering involved.
Mm-hmm.
You're just collecting good data. Okay, so a question for you, Avinash. So this is from Lloyd, all the way in Cape Town.
Yay.
Bounce rate in Ajax lead generation. So if there's a lead gen website with lead forms on all pages, and then a lead is submitted, the page and the URL does not change, but the box changes to a thank you message via Ajax. So is this conversion still called a bounce?
All right. So it's a quick lesson in bounce rates and how bounce rates work. What any web analytics tool, including Google Analytics, does is look up a person's behavior on a site. So let's say Nick is the visitor. When Nick comes to my website, what Google Analytics is looking for in order to measure if he's a bounce or not is looking for the presence of hits, H-I-T-S. And so if Nick came to my website and he just viewed a page and he leaves right away, that's one hit, and that session will be counted as a bounce. But if Nick visited my website, in this case, let's forget about the Ajaxy thing. Let's consider my blog, Occam's Razor. And Nick comes to the site, sees my latest blog post, and so that's hit, boom, recorded. Mm-hmm. Then Nick proceeds to submit a comment on my blog post. And when you submit a comment on my blog post, nothing happens after you submit a comment. It just goes through into the WordPress system. What I am doing is with custom variables, thanks to Nick's help, I am actually using custom variables to capture that information. In this case, as soon as Nick submits a comment, I have captured that, and it is in Google Analytics, and now I have 2 hits. Nick has viewed only 1 page, but I have 2 hits. Now that session is not going to be counted as a bounce. Boom. Another thing that Nick has helped me do on my blog is, somebody comes to my blog, clicks on a link to Market Motive, which is my startup, and they go over there. So they only viewed a page and they left by clicking on an outbound link. Nick has helped me encode those links with event tracking, so I can do outbound link tracking. In this case, what happened? 1 hit for the page view, 1 hit for the event for an outbound link, although the person only viewed 1 page on my site. Not a bounce. Bounces are only counted for sessions where there is only 1 hit. If you're using features like event tracking, custom variables, fake page views, etc., in order to collect information about a visitor's behavior correctly, all those sessions will not be a bounce, including the scenario you described, Lloyd, for a Ajax-driven cart. In your scenario, that is not a bounce, but only if you're a true ninja and capturing that conversion using either our e-commerce track or custom variable or event tracking.
Yep.
End of the story.
Great question.
Another one, oh my goodness, episode 14 was truly inspiring, by the way. It also inspired Anit in Finland. And the question is, greetings from Finland. Episode 14 inspired me to ask a question about query parameters in reports and filtering them. I use parameters, non-UTM, for tracking, but I hate to see them in the reports. If I exclude them, can I use them in segmentation? I can't use them in segmentation solution.
That's a good question.
I don't think any solution.
Right, you have to actually send us data for us to report on it. So if you kind of filter those out, then we'd have nothing to report on.
Exactly.
One of the options you could do is, instead of trying to pass that data to us via the URIs, you could actually try to use the custom variables, for example.
Some advanced.
So you could do some advanced customizations. And again, we always recommend talking to a partner. But in this case, you could send the data in a custom variable and have profile filters overwrite the query parameters so they don't exist. So you still have the custom variable for the hit, but you don't have the query parameters. In this case, talk to one of our certified GACs, and they'll help you out. Yeah.
So I'm afraid, Auntie in Finland, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Sadly.
Yeah. Okay, so question for you, Avinash. I wonder if there's a way to measure the conversions of those who had come to the site from any referral, but purchased or did something else during the next direct visits. So we missed the initial referral origin of the visitor.
So I want to be very careful, and I will only answer the narrow scope of this question. And then, because this is quite a complicated issue,
Sure.
and maybe we'll do a whiteboard talk on this one day. But if a person comes to your site initially on a campaign, let's say, and visits it, and then subsequently comes 2 more times on direct visit, directly to your site, and then converts, then that particular conversion will be attributed to the initial campaign that brought the person to your site. In summary, in this particular specific narrow scenario, the direct visits won't get the credit for the conversion, rather the campaign will. In Google Analytics, direct visits are not overwritten when it comes to attributing to campaigns, and campaigns includes search, organic, paid, email, etc., etc.
Yep.
So in this narrow scenario, the first referral will get credit.
Good question.
Here's a great one for you, Nick, from Magnus in Gothenburg, Sweden. Is there a handy way for editors to work with custom variables when you don't have access to the part of the page template which renders the GA tracking code, i.e. in a template-based CMS where editors can only edit the content of a page? This hurts me.
Yeah, no, it's a challenge. So the thing is, for custom variables, you have to set them before the request that sends the data to analytics. So custom variables doesn't send data. Events and page views send the data to analytics. So I mean, I think in this case, what you really need to do is find a way for the template owners to give you access to some sort of a place above where the JavaScript loads, so that way you can add your own custom variables before Google Analytics loads. So I think in this case, it's just working with your developers to find an easy way where you have flexibility, but they can also make sure that you're not messing up the whole site.
So in this case, as well as with Antti in Finland and Magnus in Sweden, you cannot have your cake and eat it too.
I think
you need access to the system in order to enable tracking.
Yeah. I think, but you can with this one, you can at least work with the developers who actually own the system to simplify your life. So you probably talk with them once or twice, and then you can make it work.
Makes sense.
So here's a question for you, Avinash, from Florian in France. Hello, ninjas. What do you think about using the e-commerce tracking code to measure the monetary value of a non-e-commerce website? Greater insights than the standard goal value method.
So Florian, it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off. So I like using goals rather than using the e-commerce, because I like metrics like per visit goal value and index goal value, etc. kind of things. But indeed, it is 100% possible for you to use the e-commerce tracking for a non-e-commerce website in order to do goal values. One great benefit of doing it the method that you're describing is that you get days and visits to conversion, which in this case, the conversion would be a goal, not an e-commerce conversion. But I really miss the fact that for goals, as normally created, you cannot get days and visits to conversion. So I want to know how many visits it took for me to get a non-e-commerce lead, as an example, and I won't be able to get that with a standard goal reporting. So that's one benefit I like of using e-commerce tracking rather than the goal tracking. Yeah. But there's one other benefit that you particularly like, Nick.
Yeah, right. So with the goals value, you can only have a single value, like 10. So that means anytime somebody hits that goal, you always give them 10. Whereas in transactions, you can have any variable amount, any revenue amount. So Avinash could hit a 10, and I could go to the same place and only get 5. And you could add more custom logic to really refine exactly how much you calculate the actual goal value.
So if both of us, let's say Nick came from Bing, and I came from Google, you could say all visitors from Bing for the exact same goal will get a dynamic value of $10, and all visitors who come from Google will get $5.
Yeah.
That's a concrete example of what you're suggesting.
Exactly.
And you can't do this with just the goal methodologies. You could do this with e-commerce. It's a great point.
Yep, definitely.
Another one for you, Nick. From Andrew again in Sydney. Is there a way to see data broken down by day of the week? In custom reports, I can break it down by hour of the day, but I'd like to see how many people visit our site on Mondays or Tuesdays and compare it with the period for the past. It's a good question.
Yeah, it's a great question. So no, you can't get it by day of the week. I think
back in standard interface.
Yeah, in a standard interface. I think maybe back in version 3 we had something like that, and it got pulled out. So we don't have that. But what you can do is pull it out by date and use our API for sure. Exactly. So you can do your own aggregations.
We'll add links to. We have 2 sections in the Google Analytics app gallery that I particularly like. And the first one is the business intelligence category. And the second one is called a reporting category. And we'll link to that, Nick. There are a number of tools in those categories that make these kinds of things much easier.
Absolutely. So here's a question from David from London for you, Avinash. A user has a number of tabs open and has one tab in a funnel, the other tab on a page outside the funnel, and flicks between the two tabs, clicking tab 1, then tab 2, then tab 1, advancing in the funnel. Would I see this as a funnel exit and entrance?
So two quick answers, David. It's important to understand, realize that when this kind of tab behavior happens in your session, in a visitor session, and it's recorded in Google Analytics, it essentially gets serialized. So the hits that we spoke of before get recorded in the way that they occurred. So sometimes actually you see that a person went from page A to page B when there's no link from page A to page B, that's tabbed behavior because they might have opened page B from somewhere else.
Right.
But it looks serious. So that's the first thing to realize. Now, once you realize that, I encourage you to then look at your own funnel and then apply that serialization to your funnel and see how it would impact it, because it's very hard to answer this in a generic way. Depending on how you structure the funnel, perhaps you'll see it as exit and as you don't, because we don't have access to your funnel. But the thing to understand is all the hits that come in will be serialized by timestamp on the hit.
Right.
And that's how the session gets recorded.
Exactly.
And maybe we'll link to a post that I had written on how time on site is computed, because I specifically cover tab browsing in that. And we'll link to that. And you'll see an actual picture and what happens there.
Sounds great.
Here's a question for Nick from Peter, our good friend in Eindhoven in Netherlands. Hello, Peter. And the question is, my company hosts a website that contains lots of radio buttons, drop-downs, and checkboxes. Is there a way? These are used for identifying product choices for our customers. These queries are not visible in the URL. That's not uncommon. How can I track these in Google Analytics? I think we have a very good answer for this.
Yeah, no, there's actually a couple approaches for sending more data. You can use custom variables, and then my favorite one is using event tracking. And so the idea would be as people select the different parameters, either send an event or when you finally submit the form, send a couple events, and then you can segment by those as well.
And Nick, you've written some very good documents on how to use event tracking and custom variables. Perhaps we'll link to that.
Sure.
Because it's actually not that hard. I mean, it seems hard. And if you feel that way, you can go to one of our gags and we'll link to them. But just the help articles.
The idea is once you capture the data with either custom variables or event tracking, you use the advanced segments to figure out exactly what slice of visitors selected A, B, and C. So it's really powerful.
So we'll end with a good question from Eugene in Bucharest, Romania. And the question for you, Nick, is here is a 100 points Google Analytics e-commerce question. How can I get a report for the average number of items per order?
It's a great question. So if you go to the e-commerce reporting or the e-commerce tab in any of our reports, there's actually an average quantity per order, which is exactly the metric that you're looking for.
Boom!
100 points.
So that was all we had for this exciting episode number 15. We again encourage you to click through on a link and submit your own questions, or go to the website and rate those questions of other people so we can rank them higher and answer them for your peers around the world. We want to end this episode as we normally do by awarding a Ninja of the Episode award.
All right.
To the person who asked us the best question. And Nick and I were unanimous in this in the selection, and the award goes to Lloyd from Cape Town for the delightful bounce rate question. For Lloyd, so Lloyd, you know how to find my email address. Email it to me, and we'll send you an autographed, personalized copy of Web Analytics 2.0. And for the rest of you, that tells you that you have an incentive for submitting a very good question for us.
There you go.
Thank you, and happy analytics.